Hello there and welcome to the Weird Record Club. This is the channel where we explore the weird and wonderful vinyl records that are ignored elsewhere. The strange, the psychedelic, the comic, the novelty, the downright odd. And in this program we're going to look at the work of one band duo called Ramases. They're probably best known for this album, right way up, Space Hymns, with its fantastic Roger Dean cover. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, who were Ramases? Well, Ramases was actually the name given to a gentleman called, Kimberly Barrington Frost. And his parents came from Sheffield, and he, after a period of time in the army when he worked as a PT instructor and then setting up his own heating business, and he met his wife who worked in a restaurant. This must have been in the early 60s. She said that he came into the restaurant, said to her, "You're the one I've been looking for a long time," and they married a few weeks later. Now, they came to believe that Barrington Frost was the reincarnation of the pharaoh Ramases II, Ramases the Great. And there are some different accounts as to why he came to believe that. There are a few things. One thing that Selkett says that soon after they were married, they visited a fortune teller in Blackpool, and she said that she could see behind them an ancient person who was about 4,000 years old, who was famous. So that was the first thing. And then sometime later, they were in a Sheffield bookshop, and his wife, Dorothy, pulled out this book that had a photograph of her, an ancient Egyptian statuette that was the spitting image of her. And they found out that this was Selkett, and she was the guardian of Ramases the Great's tomb. Now, as time went on, Barrington Frost started to have these visions where he would see himself in a mirror, or whoops, there's Ozzy, just getting comfortable. He would see himself in a mirror or car mirrors or shop windows, looking what appeared to be like a big space helmet. And he got the impression that someone somewhere wanted him to shave his head, which he did. Now, of course, this kind of upside down face of big beard and shaven head, quite normal to see that now. Then, in the hairy 60s, it caused a sensation with people stopping him in the street. So it was even more of a shock than having long hair in those days. Now, this book about Ramases and Selkett that they found in the bookshop also said that Ramases was the first pharaoh to shave his head. So there was another thing that they put together to build up this idea that Barrington Frost was the reincarnation or was being possessed by the soul of Ramases II. Now, at some point when they were working in Sheffield, I should say that Barrington Frost was quite a straight person. You know, he wore a pinstripe suit and a bowler hat when he was managing his business. And but he said one day he got this flash of light, like a vision, a mystical vision. And after that, he began to write, or began to channel these Eastern mystical sounding songs that was very unlike what he was listening to at the time. And so they began to call themselves first, just as a joke, as Ramases and Selkett. But then that became their stage names. They began recording. They released an early single called Quasar 1. And the record company thought that punters wouldn't know what a quasar was, so they had to change it to Quasi 1. The single didn't go anywhere, but eventually they did record an album. They had an album deal with Vertigo, and they recorded a couple of albums from them. Now, the first one, let me just show you that. Space Hymns. Before we talk about what's inside, we should just mention this amazing Roger Dean cover, famous for doing the work for the album covers for Yes, of this rocket blasting off. Now, if we open this up, it's really big, and I'm not sure I can get it all onto the screen, but you can see that the rocket is actually the spire from a church taking off. That's a church in Stockport. On the other side of this massive cover, you get a nice image of Selkit and Ramases. So, great cover. The album was recorded in Stockport in Strawberry Studios, and the backing band, who provided all the music for the songs that Ramases had written, were Hotlegs, who were later to become known as 10cc. So all members of 10cc provide the bass, drums, guitar, and other instruments all over this. Now, I think the guys in 10cc did a very, very sympathetic job. It's a really nice piece of proggy psych, but at the same time, the songs are all really accessible, partly because there's a lot of repetition in the songs, maybe a bit too much at times. Now, another thing that might be interesting, I think this is the first record to include the gizmo, the gizmotron, which was invented by Godley and Cream, and it was like something that slots onto the over the strings near the pickup of the guitar and allows you to use the guitar as a kind of synthesizer. So that was the first record to have some of that, have some gizmo action on there. So really interesting record. I really love it, since I heard a song called Molecular Delusion on a compilation called, what was it called? Electric Sitar Head Swirlers Vol 3 or something like that. But anyway, like I said, some of the songs have quite a lot of repetition. There's one that goes, "You're the only one, you're the only one, Joe, the only one, you're the only one, Joe." And I think it's a testament to the soon-to-be members of 10cc that they managed to keep all these songs interesting by the variations, the effects, and the percussion and all that kind of thing that happens throughout. Now, a lot of really good songs. They have a theme of mysticism, reincarnation, religion, spirituality running through it. So it's a great album. It wasn't a hit, unfortunately. And in some of her later interviews, Selkit, who's still alive, has said that she thinks that Hotlegs, who at the time they were recording this, released a single called Neanderthal Man, which became a huge hit. And if you remember Neanderthal Man, it's got like a really loud drum beat and a bit of some quiet strum guitar, and it's just like, I'm a Neanderthal man, you're a Neanderthal girl, let's make Neanderthal love in this Neanderthal world. And it just goes on and on like that for the whole blooming song. It was a surprise hit, a novelty hit, I suppose. Now, 10cc have said that this started out as like a drum. They were just testing drum microphone placements, and that's how that song came about. But Selkit seems to think that they ripped off the sound of space hymns and then had this big hit with Neanderthal Man. I can't see that. Somehow the simplistic Neanderthal Man is a world away from the kind of proggy psych that's on space hymns. Furthermore, though, Selkit seems to think, well, Selkit tells the story that after they'd recorded the album Space Hymns, Ramases got an offer from the Moody Blues to go on tour with them, which would have been a great opportunity to bring their music to a wider audience. And she said that basically Hotlegs stabbed them in the back, saying that, without us, you're nothing, so we're going to go on the tour for ourselves. Now, I don't know how much of that is true or misremembered or whatever, but that's what she said. In later interviews, there's one interview, you can find it in the Consequences 10cc podcast, well worth looking at, where she is just full of praise for 10cc stroke Hotlegs and their recording of this album. In any case, it wasn't a hit, but they had another album to do, which came out in 1975. Now, after what had gone on, they felt that they couldn't use 10cc as their backing band again. And so the second album which is called Glass Top Coffin, was recorded in London. And you can see again, we've got another great cover. We've got some kind of cutout there. That is the back. And we've got a lovely gatefold here with some weird birdie monster on one side. You've got Ramases and Selkit there, and then some kind of cosmic globy thing. There's a quote at the top that says, the dreamer dreamed, the dust rose up and walked, but when the dreamer woke, did anyone tell the dust? So think about that. Any case, this album's much more mellow, orchestral, acoustic than the first one, but it's still a really strong album. The songs still have that repetitive, accessible streak in them. There's a bit of a flavour of exotica in some of them. And again, we have the themes of reincarnation, spirituality and searching. The title, Glass Top Coffin, comes from one of the songs where Ramases imagines himself dead in a coffin at his funeral, with the coffin has a glass top, and so he can see the people looking down at him. And a couple of songs on the album prefigure what was the tragedy that was eventually to befall Ramases. Now, they found that they couldn't tour this album because it required a load of musicians and an orchestra basically for it to work. And so, again, the album wasn't much of a success and they couldn't tour it. So there was a prospective third album, but they were dropped by the label before much could be done on it. So Ramases himself started to suffer from depression, or his suffering became more acute. He seems to have been a manic depressive, and he locked himself away, refusing to come out. And then he started to talk about how it was time for him to leave the world, that death is not the end, it's just moving to the next step. But he started to talk about leaving the world, leaving the planet. In other words, of taking his own life. Now, things came to a head one day when their nephew and niece were staying with them. And Ramases again started saying, now's the time to go to the next world, to move on, to leave this planet. And Selkit became really scared that he was going to he was going to kill himself in front of the children, or perhaps even worse, he was going to take her and the children with him. She escaped to her parents' house with the children, and that night Ramases took an overdose of paracetamol. He was found in time, rushed to hospital, had his stomach pumped, and he discharged himself. But again, the same day, took another overdose, and this time he didn't recover. So it's a tragic end, really, for Ramases. But the music is well worth checking out. It's both uplifting, but also sort of poignant when you know the full story. The newspaper articles that I looked up when I was researching them, some of them sort of said, oh, maybe it's just a publicity stunt that they were that he was claiming to be the reincarnation of Ramases the Great. It seems to me that maybe he really did believe that, but there is a sense that he was somewhat delusional as well, and the way they put together these coincidences to create this kind of delusion that they were the reincarnation of a long dead pharaoh, although it created a nice story to sort of hang around the records. Ultimately it was destructive. In any case, the records are pretty expensive to find original copies. There are reissues out and about, and it's easy to pick up on CD or streaming services. But there we have it. That is the story of Ramases. See you next time.